What wasn't working was, I think, being in a bit of a holding pattern in regards to career and goals, but I didn't know what that was and how to get there. I changed fields, I moved into healthcare, I moved to a startup, and I became a head of product. So I had quite a significant leap in responsibility and work that was there, along with the confidence that I would be able to do that work. I was able to negotiate higher, and the offer that I finally landed at was quite a bit higher than the one that was originally presented. And I think the big thing that we practiced in coaching that really helped me was the negotiation was much more of a conversation on skills and need.
Hi, Rohit. How are you?
Hi, Natalie. I'm great.
If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, maybe just like say your name, maybe location, what you do. And then I want to ask you a couple of other questions as well about your experience with coaching.
Sure. So my name is Rohit Sharma. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I currently work in product management at a cybersecurity company called Okta. And I'm originally from Toronto, but I've spent the last 17 years in Seattle. So I've had a lot of change in my life recently. From right around the time I started working with Yogi, I changed disciplines from PM to UX back to PM. I changed locations from Seattle to Toronto, and I had lots of different career growth, moving from being a UX designer at a consulting company to being a chief product officer in mental health to being a director of a design group, and now working in a brand new field in security. And as you and Yogi both know, I'm also a very proud and happy dad of two young kids. And so having young kids is also a job in and of itself. So these are
Yes.
all the main things that keep me busy.
Yes, you have your hands full, 100%. And that influences like your career and how much time you put into it and that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, I want you to kind of go back to before coaching. Can you kind of tell us really some of the challenges you were facing? What wasn't working before starting coaching?
What wasn't working was, I think, being in a bit of a holding pattern in regards to career and goals. So when I first met Yogi, before I started coaching with Yogi, then I was working as a UX designer and I'd been in that job for over 5 years. And I knew I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what that was and how to get there. And I also felt like I had goals around getting in better shape and managing my money better. At the time, I had goals for starting a family, and I didn't see how all that would fit together. So I would say before working in coaching, I had aspirations, but I didn't feel really confident that I'd be able to get to them.
Well, and like, where were you at, like, even with like interviewing before you started coaching? Like, had you gotten any interviews or had started like the job search, that sort of thing?
I did. Yeah, I had some interviews. I interviewed at a variety of companies, but I was also working full time, so I didn't really have my foot on the gas, so to speak. And so nothing had really panned out. So some traction, some interviews were happening, but nothing was panning out. There were no concrete offers.
And where do you think was kind of like your confidence with the job search, interviewing, that sort of thing, like before you started coaching?
My confidence was, looking back, I would say a little bit low because I was investing a lot of effort in any activity. Like if I had an interview, then I would take a weekend, I would devote a lot of time to it. I would really over index on preparation to the point where I sometimes felt like I was over preparing and not necessarily being very effective in my approach, but much more kind of hoping something would come together. And as soon as it did, then just putting a lot of effort behind it, but then not really seeing results come out of that.
Did that shift anything like in the home life or like kind of like that stress like affect the home life in any way?
Yes, I think it made me feel like other goals have to be on hold. Like I was thinking that it would be good around that same time to devote more time to health and fitness, but that wasn't happening. And the sense was, well, I can't really go after a lot of big goals at the same time. And if the primary one isn't working, if I'm not able to change my job, then how am I going to have confidence and kind of making impacts in other ways? So I would say it was kind of putting other things on hold was the big impact it was having.
Yeah, which is really common. That's a lot of us do that 100%. Yeah, especially when we're really stressed, getting burned out, and the job search and interview prep, it can take a toll.
Yeah.
Tell me about our work together with me and Yogi and just kind of tangible, intangible kind of results? Like some of the biggest things that happened for you, what changed for you during coaching?
So I've worked with you and Yogi for a little while now. And when I first started working with Yogi, I had a big shift in my career. I was working as a individual practitioner, as a user experience designer. I changed fields. I moved into healthcare. I moved to a startup and I became a head of product. So I had quite a significant leap in responsibility and work that was there,
Mm-hmm.
along with the confidence that I would be able to do that work. And so after that, in kind of successive iterations of working with Yogi, I also had other shifts. It was a big priority of mine to move my family to Canada, back home. And so I had a big shift there, along with a number of different job shifts that aligned with that, moving from that startup in Seattle to a job in Detroit, working in management, and then now working in a job in Toronto. So I would say a number of planned and unplanned shifts kind of happened. Along with that, there's been, I guess, lots of like personal struggles, as you know of, that have been not by design that happen, just like challenges in the family and health concerns of the family members and those sorts of things. So I would say there's been like obvious career growth that's happened, but then also it's happened in a season of life that hasn't always been that easy, right? There's still other challenges. And I'd say the biggest shift has been not just being able to go after a bigger title or a different job or even relocate my family, but it's also doing all that while responding to really big external challenges as well, and kind of still
Right.
being able to do all this in a way that's still healthy and supportive of others.
Yeah, like still provide the support for your family, be there for the relationships that are most important for you, that sort of thing, and not lose sight of that. Yeah, 100%. I love that. And kind of tell me, like, how did it change interviewing, job search? How did it help or change anything there with what you were doing before coaching versus like during?
So a few things, like working with you, Natalie, especially on a lot of interview prep, it changed it to much more of an experimental mindset for me. I have to hold really tightly to this goal and then try to keep going after it. But a phrase you kept using with me is we're getting data through this and we're getting better, and not even attaching myself so much to the results of it, but more learning from the process. And that mindset shift, I think, has been really helpful for all goal achievement, right? It's become a lot less about what is this goal I'm clinging to
Mhm.
and what can I do to put all my effort toward it. It's changed from that to what are the steps I can make toward that goal, and how is my work going? What am I learning from the process? What feedback am I getting? What feedback can I reflect on with a coach? And then how can we move toward that? The biggest impact when it comes to goals have been two things. The first is that I was going after goals and really putting a lot of attachment to the outcome of them, and how do I really grip that tightly? How do I try to get after something? And working with you, especially in interview preparation, a big phrase you kept using me, Natalie, is that we're collecting data. And so it shifted my mindset to more of an experimental one. We're taking these activities and then we're going to learn from them and we're going to see what happens. And that created a lot of psychological safety. It made the process better and it led to better outcomes. And I would also say a big shift that resulted from coaching was not blowing up goals to more complicated than they needed to be, but actually taking the goals, putting them in terms of really small activities we could commit to. Like, what's the minimal amount of work that we need to do to actually move this forward? And then focusing on that. That was a huge thing. And a big thing that you and Yogi taught me and that we practiced was not really worrying about like all the perfect things we can do, but what are the
Mhm.
smallest actions we can take and how can we repeatedly take them and learn from them. And that's been a practice in exercise, in mindfulness, in lots of different things. So that's been a big shift that continues to kind of
Yes.
affect my days.
I love that. And also, I just remembered that while we were coaching together, you got an offer and Ashley had also decided not to take it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So coaching kind of help with that decision making.
It did, yeah. And I think one thing I really appreciated about working in coaching was it was very pragmatic. I remember at one point I was thinking, should I just stop the job search process altogether and just completely do something independent? And that wasn't the right answer, but it also wasn't the right answer to take an offer that wasn't right. And I think what coaching really helped me with was the middle path of still do the foundational work that I need to right now, and do the things like get after a job that is connected to the experience I have, but also don't settle, right? And have some trust in yourself, have some trust in the process. And I think that's what really helped me. We talked about like experimentation a little bit and getting data. And I viewed that offer not as the end of the story, but more as just more data. Here's what we've secured. Now we can take that or we can kind of keep going. And that was really helpful.
And then when you got the offer that you ended up taking, how did coaching affect like your negotiation, or like what happened there? Were you able to negotiate higher, or what did how did coaching influence that?
I was able to negotiate higher, and the offer that I finally landed at was quite a bit higher than the one that was originally presented. And I think the big thing that we practiced in coaching that really helped me was the negotiation was much more of a conversation on skills and need. It wasn't what I thought negotiation would be, which was like a hard line sales conversation or trying to argue for this or that. It was much more, let's unpack the needs of the job. Let's
Mm-hmm.
unpack what a good compensation, what the right compensation is for that, and then move forward from there. And I practiced all those skills when I got that first job offer. And it was interesting. I never really sought out to say no to it. It was much more through conversation for that particular opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It was mutual understanding that like the offer they were presenting wasn't right for me and wasn't right for the role. And then when I did accept an offer, the conversation was really different. So I would say it significantly changed not just the final offer that I received, but my approach to negotiation. It became a lot more of a mutual kind of conversation and
Mm-hmm.
less about kind of me versus them negotiation.
Yes, like a collaboration energy. Were there any doubts that you had before you started coaching, like about whether this is going to work for me or should I invest in this? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was first considering working with Yogi, then it was my first step into coaching. And so the big doubt I had was, is this the right investment for, is this the right financial investment? Especially when you're thinking about changing a job, then you're looking a lot at numbers and is this the right financial investment? So that was a big question in my mind. And then the second one was, what modality makes sense for me? Is it
Mm-hmm.
coaching? Is it therapy? And if it is coaching, then should I look for a specialized coach? Should I try to pick someone who's doing exactly work in product or whatever I'm trying to do in leadership? But I think that it was really helpful to work through that with Yogi, kind of the same way we talked about negotiation, where it wasn't him or you ever making a sales pitch for the work. It was much more, what
Mm-hmm.
outcomes do we want to receive? And what are we trying to achieve in coaching together? And how can we make it that whatever I'm investing in coaching, both money and time, is returned back in such a way where there's no doubt about its value. So I think that was a big turning point. And then
Right.
also, honestly, just trying different coaches and in theory, working with someone who's exactly in the same domain, it sounds like it would be more helpful, but I think it really depends on the coach. And in this case, Yogi
Yeah.
has so much experience that it was still a really good fit for the things I was working on.
Is there anything that you would want to say to somebody who's like thinking about joining coaching?
I would say that the big thing Yogi told me early on was that it's not so much that you need coaching. It's not like you either need it or you don't, or you can't achieve your goals without it. But it really affects the process of going after your goals and how
Mm-hmm.
quickly you go after them. Right. And I think for me, it's hard to like unwind and say, if I didn't do coaching, then how would have things played out? But I'm quite certain that it's hard to say if things would have worked out exactly as well as they did. And even if I went down a similar path, I think it would have taken a lot longer. I think it would have been more challenging in kind of unpleasant ways. Like it'd take longer to kind of learn about what's working well and what's working not. And it would definitely affect my confidence for going after future things. So now when I think of whatever I'm going after next, it's less a conversation in my head about can I do this or not? It's more about what am I choosing to go after or not, if that makes sense. And I
Right.
think that's the big thing that coaching's given me. And I think for anyone who finds himself in that same situation where they're working through those things in their head, I think coaching with Yogi can be really helpful.
That's so good. Well, thank you so much for your willingness to talk about your experience.